Would be nice if things made a bit more sense in this book, but I'm not holding out much hope. Hi folks, welcome back to the read-along for A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. We're moving on to chapter 13, 14 and 15. Will things make more sense? Probably not. But I could have guessed that beforehand. I'm Kat, by the way, welcome back to the channel. Instead of going on the hunt that Feyre initially wanted when she asked Lucian, she and Tamlin go into the study, where he magics on a couple of candles in one go. I guess it's a nice display. And it makes Feyre wonder. Either he's not as affected by the blight or he's a lot more powerful than I assumed. Because if he could turn his sentries into wolves, and I was like, where did it say that he turned Huntress into a wolf? Or any of his sentries, really? Either I completely missed that, or this is just info that she assumes, or that is dropped out of nowhere, because I don't remember that Tamlin is the one turning other people into wolves. I thought that was just Andra's ability. She hits us with a very nice contradiction. In one sentence, she's like, oh, if I manage to write a letter, then maybe I can beg Lucian or Tamlin to deliver it. It's like, okay, fair enough. Obviously, you can't drop it off yourself and there's no postal service. Cool. But then literally the next paragraph is like, oh no, I can't ask them to write it because if they see that I wanted to warn people about the blight, then they would not pass this on. And if you just ask them to deliver this letter, you think they won't look at it if they have to assume that you're a spy? That makes no sense whatsoever. This girl is killing me, seriously. Either way, Feyre is giving free range of the library / study. She calls it study because it's less intimidating than a library, which is what it really is. But she tries to teach herself reading and writing. She knows her very basic letters, apparently can't write all that well, but she can just about make do and decipher some words, so she has a basis to work off of at least. She goes off to wander the library and finds a mural that depicts the history of Prythian, more or less. And then, despite the fact that there's no writing on this, she just deducts the whole history as far as depicted. And she can make sense of the map and like, oh, this is the Dawn Court, this is the Night Court. It's like, how do you know what all of these places are called if there is no communication between fairies and humans and you've never seen anything past the wall? It doesn't seem like the thing that they would teach human children in school or wherever, because humans don't go there. So how does she know those things? You can assume that she guesses from the pictures, oh, this looks like spring, this looks like autumn, but it seems like a bit of a stretch just because something uses orange, yellow and blue colors. It's like, oh, it's the Dawn Court. It's like, well, if you've never heard this term, then that would be a very wild guess. Feyre is working really hard to become one of my least liked characters. So Tamlin wanders back in, checks on her and offers to help her write this letter. And Feyre understands this like, oh, he's just here to humiliate me, and then starts antagonizing him and drops a line like, Lucian doesn't pretend to be something he's not. You would know that how? You don't know anything about this guy, really. It's like, oh god. Yeah, she annoys the hell out of me, to be honest. Not long after this, Feyre laments that she mistakenly thought that Tamlin and she had something in common, as in caring for others. And it's just like, if this is how you show that you think you have something in common with somebody, then wow, it's a surprise you have any friends or acquaintances at all, because all she does is snap at people and antagonize them. Feyre is a little miffed that apparently nobody is giving her answers to specific questions about the blight. It's like, well, for one, maybe they don't have those answers. Second, you wouldn't know about this blight to begin with if they hadn't happily been sharing information with you anyway. And they don't owe you answers anyway. But never mind, Feyre is miffed and she goes off to speak to Lucian. And he can tell it's her when she knocks, or even before she knocks. It's like, yeah, I can, you know, he can hear her through the door. And I'm like, interesting how his senses are now so keen, but before when she was eavesdropping, neither Tamlin nor Lucian noticed her until she hit the door or something. It's like, can their powers be consistent for like one chapter to the other maybe? Feyre tries to be, I don't know, subtle or sneaky, but she really isn't, and she just more or less outright asks Lucian how to trap a Suriel. A faerie that would then have to answer all of her questions to the best of their abilities, or maybe they're all knowing, I don't know. But she thinks trapping a Suriel is a solution to her problems. And Lucian actually tells her. Why? Who knows? He equips her with a knife and gives her all the info she needs, and then tells her that he will be listening out in case she runs into trouble doing this very dangerous thing that he previously told her is too dangerous and she shouldn't be doing it anyway. But he will listen out for screams, and then, you know, he will be out on a hunt, and maybe he will still get there in time if something happens to her. He also warns her that she needs to head for running water because that would provide some protection from the Suriel. And he also mentions that this is explicitly against Tamlin's wishes because he wants Feyre to be kept safe. And now I'm really confused. Either Lucian wants her dead, which is why he gives her this information and he can just watch her get herself killed because she's clearly not equipped to deal with this faerie. Or he follows Tamlin's wishes and wants to keep her safe, in which case, if he hadn't told her, then she would have no way of actually finding a Suriel. So what's the play here, Lucian? I'm really confused. Obviously, this is thinking about it from a character's perspective. The plot needs this to happen, so it happens. Whether this makes any sense for the character who is either loyal to Tamlin or isn't, who either wants Feyre dead or doesn't matter. The beginning of chapter 14, Feyre heads off. She's equipped with snares, a knife, her bow and arrow, and a dead chicken that she asked the kitchen staff for. And they will totally not be confused or have questions about why the house guest wants a dead chicken that she then carries out into the garden, but whatever. Feyre heads off with her dead chicken. And then on her way, she wonders who Tamlin reports to or who he answers to. Is it some High Lord, or because she listened in on a conversation between Tamlin and Lucian beforehand where they mention a she that we don't know anything about yet, really. She surmises maybe it's the High Lord's consort. And I'm like, excuse me, why do you think a female faerie can't rule? Why would it have to be a High Lord's consort that did anything to Lucian or Tamlin or whatever? Seems a bit misogynistic and kinda crap. Feyre finds the clearing that Lucian so kindly described for her, sets her trap, but at least she prepares herself somewhat because she checks several routes to running water before she actually puts the dead chicken down. I'm not entirely sure if she already carries this dead chicken. The Suriel could have maybe smelled that before and it just come for her, but I don't know. Don't question it too much. She sets her trap, and then when silence descends onto the clearing, she's like, oh, this seems weird. Maybe I overestimated my abilities. No, actually, maybe Lucian overestimated my abilities. And I'm like, I'm not so sure. If he wants you dead, then this seems like a somewhat decent way to do it if he had equipped you with less knowledge, I suppose. But no, if anybody is overestimating her abilities, it's Feyre herself. Feyre actually captures Suriel, who then has to answer all of her questions. And the first thing she asks, and Suriel tells her, is like, well, no, you can't go home, this is it. But Feyre has more questions. She just asked like a general question about Tamlin, and Suriel is like, well, no, you need to be a bit more specific here. I know a great many things about the High Lord. And Feyre's like, oh, Tamlin is the High Lord. And I'm like, is anybody really surprised? I mean, it was clear that Lucian was actually scared of the Bogge and wouldn't dare take it on. And that wasn't just because Feyre was with him. I think that was a general thing like, oh, I don't want to mess with this. But Tamlin clearly is capable of setting out and taking this thing down. So unless there are many, many varieties of power levels in the faeries or the High Fae, it doesn't seem like a stretch to think that the guy who rules over this estate is the High Lord. Whatever, Feyre is surprised, but nobody else is. The cereal sets out to give Feyre a history lesson because she asks something about the Blight. He never gets to the end of it, but he speaks about the western kingdom of Hybern, whose king was really not happy with the treaty and disagrees with having to give up his human slaves and whatnot. But before the history lesson finishes, the cereal is like, oh my god, other things are coming, we need to run. But Feyre isn't quick enough to actually release the cereal. Chapter 15, 4 Naga have appeared, so snake-like fairies, which are apparently made out of shadow and hatred or something. Whatever, just Naga have appeared. And Feyre at least acknowledges, okay, she's out of her depth and fighting these guys is not really an option. So she does the next best thing. She screams, hoping that Lucian actually hears her and comes to her rescue. And then she shoots the tether that is holding the cereal. She's one hell of a sniper. She just shot a piece of rope to set the cereal free, essentially. It's like, holy hell. No wonder that you one-shotted Andras, more or less. I mean, it seems a bit unlikely. She manages to get one more shot off before she legs it for the running water. She jumps over that, but it turns out Naga are not as affected as the cereal. And then while struggling and being flanked by 2 of them, she hits one of them in the face with her bow. Apparently hard enough to crunch bone. Which then makes me wonder what the hell her bow is made from. I mean, it would hurt to get hit in the face by a bow, sure. But crunching bone and actually knocking something out? I don't know. I mean, we're talking about a beast here, not like a person, so I don't know. Doesn't seem all that likely. But Feyre manages to get away at least to a degree. But luckily for her, timing is once again on her side, and Tamlin, who was out wherever doing something else that day, rushes in to save her. I wonder whether he can teleport, because depending on where he is, I mean, even if you travel at the speed of a wolf or a cheetah or whatever, if you're at the other end of the woods, then that doesn't really help you. Feyre actually manages to say thank you for a change, which is nice. But she's a little miffed that the cereal couldn't give her more answers. But she's determined to pass on the information she has for now to her family, so the humans know that the Blight is coming. And I'm just over here like, and what are they going to do with this information? I mean, if they haven't left, despite living so close to the border and being scared of fairies yet, then this is not going to make them run either, especially because your information is so vague that they can't do anything with it. And you don't even know whether this Blight does anything to humans because they don't seem to have any magic, so... And unless she wants to incite another war between humans and fairies, which this might well do if the humans think, ooh, we can actually take them if they don't have magic. I don't know what the point in passing this to her family is. At least some stuff happened in those chapters. There was a bit of a fight. We met another creature. The cereal is actually more interesting than Feyre for now. But again, super chatty. And I guess it's very convenient for the plot that he had to answer all of her questions to the best of his abilities. And that he knows so much, because it turns out this creature is actually older than all of the High Fae. But yeah, a couple of contradictions that... will mostly stem from Feyre being, I don't know, a bit dumb sometimes, I don't know. I have many questions, such as, what the hell is Lucian's play here? Do you want her dead or not? And what is this weird middle way that you've chosen to go instead? Yeah. But once again, in the writing, not much to report. It serves the purpose, I suppose. It's not great or mind-blowing, but it's also not horrendous, so that's fine. Feyre is an annoying character, I'm sorry, but I'm not warming to her at all. I would rather just watch Lucian and Tamlin go through the woods together or something, or just let's follow the cereal instead and see what the hell he's up to. I hope he actually managed to eat his chicken or take his chicken when he ran from the Naga. Who knows? But yeah, still nothing sexy or really daring has happened, so I'm still waiting. It's only been, what, 15 chapters now? Maybe it's time to actually add some of that? Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know how many chickens you would sacrifice to get a history lesson from the serial. Like and subscribe if you want to help this channel out, and let me know whether you read the book in general. I'll be back next week with another video, and thanks for stopping by. Bye!